What if I told you America's first mass-produced motorized scooter zipped around New York a century ago, long before electric scooters buzzed your sidewalks? Meet the Autoped, the original stand-up scooter that's basically the grandpa of your local lime or bird. I'm Timmy, your expert in ridiculous transport and questionable life choices, and welcome to Timmy Tiny Wheels, the only channel where nostalgia runs on two wheels and one questionable engineering decision at a time. Before we get rolling, you know the drill. Smash that subscribe button like you're trying to start a 1915 scooter with a dead magneto. And don't forget to ring the bell harder than a neighbor who needs you to move your car for the third time this week. Now let's jump into the world's first mass-produced motor scooter, the legendary Autoped. Trust me, this thing was the talk of New York City long before people started fighting over parking spots with electric scooters. Picture it. America, 1915. Woodrow Wilson's in the White House, Ford's churning out Model Ts, and every self-proclaimed expert in the city is shouting advice about how the horseless carriage is just a fad. Enter Arthur Hugo Cecil Gibson, British-born gasoline engine tinkerer and the kind of man who probably couldn't walk past a pile of bolts without inventing a vehicle. Teaming up with Joseph F. Merkel, yes, the Merkel from Flying Merkel fame, these guys basically locked themselves in a garage and tried to solve a problem nobody knew they had: how to move New Yorkers faster than a marching band of sidewalk preachers. Gibson's big idea? A self-propelled vehicle that's compact, lightweight, and most importantly, could be operated by anyone with a pulse and the ability to not fall over while standing. It's 1915, folks. Cars are for the rich, bikes are for kids, and everyone else is just looking for an excuse to complain. The city's got taxi strikes, transit headaches, and enough braggarts on corners to fill every barbershop in Brooklyn. Gibson and Merkel saw opportunity. If only someone could invent a scooter for the masses, maybe people would spend less time listening to bad advice and more time getting somewhere. So with the help of the newly minted Autoped Company of America, headquartered in Long Island City, Queens, because Manhattan rents were already too high, the duo rolled out the first production Autopeds by late 1915. The dream? To market it as the motor vehicle of the millions. The reality? Most people thought it looked like something a kid would build out of spare parts from the neighbor's shed. Still, with a price tag of $100, about $2,700 today if you believe the inflation calculators, the Autoped was, on paper, affordable. Who was this thing for? Let's be honest, the ads made the Autoped sound like it was for everyone. Businessmen late for meetings, doctors dodging house calls, teenagers avoiding school on wheels, delivery boys, errand-running servants, and presumably the local armchair experts who'd tell you, "Back in my day, we just walked uphill both ways." In practice, it was mostly for those with a bit of cash, a sense of adventure, and maybe a secret death wish. Because let's not forget, New York City in 1915 wasn't exactly known for its smooth roads or gentle drivers. If you could survive a week on an Autoped, you could survive anything, including your neighbor's unsolicited investment tips. By 1916, Autopeds were rolling off the line like hotcakes, if hotcakes were made of steel and required a degree in balancing acts. Gibson, true to inventor form, quickly got bored and left to build something even stranger, leaving William B. Hurlburt to steer the ship. The First World War was raging, gasoline was rationed, and materials were tight, but the Autoped's promise of 100 miles per gallon made it a budget-conscious favorite. Even the ever-ready battery company jumped in around 1918, slapping their name on the side and throwing a battery-powered model into the mix. For a brief moment, the Autoped was available with both gasoline and electric power, a trick even modern scooter companies struggle to get right without a recall. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the Germans and Brits jumped on the bandwagon, cranking out their own licensed versions. Krupp in Germany added a few extra cubic centimeters and a bolt-on seat, probably for those who'd already bruised their tailbones riding the original. In Britain, they even tried battery packs, proving that the British will electrify anything if you let them. But, like most great ideas from the early 20th century, post-war reality set in. Used cars got cheaper, Motorcycles got comfier, and the novelty wore off faster than your neighbor's promise to fix your leaky roof. By 1921, the Autoped company was out of business, leaving a legacy and presumably a lot of confused mechanics. Now for the part everyone's waiting for, the technical details. I believe technical specs are where dreams either take flight or get stuck at the first speed bump, and the Autoped was no exception. This beauty had a 4-stroke, single-cylinder 155cc engine mounted right above the front wheel. That's right, front-wheel drive on a scooter decades before the internet's favorite innovations. The engine pumped out 1.5 horsepower. Yes, that's 1.5, not 15. Enough to get you up to a blistering 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour, in regular use. Though the more optimistic liars of the day swore it could hit 30 miles per hour. If you were brave, foolish, or just had a strong tailwind and a short will. There was no gearbox, just a single-speed direct drive, which I think is what happens when you ask your laziest friend to invent a transmission. The control system? Ingenious, or as my friend Dave would say, optimistically complicated. You pushed the handlebars forward to engage the clutch and go, pulled them back to stop and brake, and if you let go, well, the Autoped stopped, and you probably started praying. A twist-grip throttle set your speed, while a lever released compression to help start or stop. The frame was a welded steel step-through design, no seat because who needs comfort, weighing around 110 pounds, 50 kilograms. The whole thing folded for storage, so you could tuck it under your desk or, more realistically, trip over it every time you got up to fetch coffee. The length? 4 feet, or if you want it the American way, 4 feet and 0 inches. With a riding deck just a couple of inches off the ground. The wheels were 10 inches in diameter, fitted with bright red no-skid rubber tires, because subtlety wasn't invented until 1942. Suspension? None. The only thing absorbing shocks was your spine. The brakes? A band or drum brake on the front, linked to the same push-pull handlebar mechanism. Stopping distance was, well, let's just say you planned ahead, or you met the curb faster than your neighbor meets a free buffet. Early prototypes even used the hollow steering column as the gasoline tank, but common sense prevailed and they moved it to a small tank above the front fender. Fuel economy was fantastic, 90 to 125 miles per gallon, or 2.6 to 1.9 liters per 100 kilometers. That means you could cross town for a nickel and still have change for a pretzel. The standard accessories? Headlight, tail lamp, a klaxon horn loud enough to wake your entire apartment building, and a toolbox for when things inevitably rattled loose. All right, friends, let's talk money, because no matter how many experts on your street corner say it's not about the price, it's about the passion, we all know they're just broke. The record used to belong to a brave soul at Meekum, Las Vegas in 2016, who forked over $13,750 for a slice of New York's rolling oddball history. But then, along comes the 1915 Autoped at RM Sotheby's in 2020, which sold for a whopping $18,600, proving once and for all that if you hang on to old stuff long enough, someone with more money than sense will eventually show up. Final thoughts. The Autoped, too cool for its time, too bumpy for comfort, and too unique to be forgotten. It may not have been a commercial blockbuster, but it gave the world a taste of what urban mobility could look like, especially for those of us who never quite mastered the art of riding a bike with dignity. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this ride through history, subscribe to Timmy Tiny Wheels, and let's keep discovering the stories. Until next time, keep your wheels tiny, your stories big, and your advice unsolicited.